that you were asking, so they may be able to get the same information. So once we get everybody settled, we are going to get everything recording. Start the recordings. All right. So once again, this is Navigating Award Season from Oscar and BAFTA winners with Lynn Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I appreciate you coming on a Sunday. I know there's lots of late nights at the festival, so it's great to have you here. And I guess I want it to be really interactive because I don't want you to wait till the end to ask a question, then you've forgotten the question. So please, if you have a question when we're talking, ask away. I am so excited to have this fantastic panel here with Oscar winners, BAFTA winner, double Oscar winners, actually, BAFTA winner and BAFTA nominee. And so that's amazing that they've joined us. I am the publicist and CEO for London Flair PR. We specialize in award season campaigns. And I've worked with all these lovely gentlemen here. So I'll start with Andrew Karlberg, and he has won an Oscar and been nominated for an Oscar. His win was with Skin. Sadly, it wasn't my film that year. We had the other 4 nominees, so I'm a little bit bitter. But but we did share the nomination for Feeling Through. So please welcome Andrew. We have Hader Huza, who has his BAFTA here, and he won the BAFTA this year for Best British Short. So he's a 2025 BAFTA winner for his film Rock, Paper, Scissors. And we have Adam Graves, who actually won the Oscar qualifying award last year at HollyShorts. And his film went on to be nominated for an Oscar. This year, I'm saying we started last year, but this year, so it's a 2025 Oscar nominee for Anuja, Adam Graves. And I can't remember all of the Oscar nominations that Kim Magnuson had because it's a lot, and we've worked together on quite a few, but he has also won 2 Oscars. He's an incredible filmmaker and pretty much has an Oscar nominated film every year, and this year won the Oscar with I Am a Robot. I'm Not a Robot. Yeah, another film I'm slightly bitter about, hence me saying the name wrong by accident. No, I'm joking. Anyway, I kind of want to start backwards. So I want us to kind of all talk about the importance of materials for your films. And these things you really need to think about before you begin shooting, like putting aside a budget to have a stills photographer on set. Thinking about doing behind the scenes video. It's really important when you're filming, make sure you've got footage of the director directing, of, the actors behind, whilst you've got them on set. Do some interviews with the cast, so you already have that later on for materials. And maybe some of you guys can talk about what you've done for that, having things beforehand, and what some tips on making sure that before you start or when you're filming that you think ahead for what you might need later.
Yeah, and that's not even just unique to an awards campaign. That's unique to film festivals in general. You're going to need production photos, and it's sometimes it can be stills from your film, but oftentimes you can stage something and get a much clearer, crisper photo. So I would say you want like at least 10 standout photos, but like a plethora of other photos that you can use for campaigning and stuff, but like 10 official photos that you can whittle down and pick and choose as the festival requires. And then, like I said, BTS, I don't really use in the festival process as much as I use when it comes to awards, and you're like wanting to put new content out all the time. And it not to feel repetitive and stuff. So, and then there's also ways to recreate stuff. Obviously, you do Q&As and stuff when you get like further along in the awards process. But yeah, I can't stress the nature of that enough. And I also think that it's really important not to like release it too early as well. Save it and release it strategically.
Well, by the way, on Film Freeway, I have noticed that a lot of films don't have stills on there. And, as a publicist for the HollyShorts Festival, when I'm speaking to the accredited press and then they don't have stills, it's like I have to chase them up, and that you're not doing yourself any favors. So I would always have some stills on Film Freeway. I think it's really important. Would you like to add to the material?
Yeah, I think it's really important that the the entirety of your team understands the value and the importance of doing things like still and incorporating it into your schedule. So if you have these conversations with your AD to try and find time, because it's very hard to get stills after the fact of shooting. You know, some of the best stuff that you can get is between the takes, sometimes even during the takes, if you get a good enough stills photographer that has got a silent camera or silent DSLR or something. Um, these are really, really important for everything beyond just the production. And I know in the heat of production, it may not seem like a priority when you're trying to get the shot or you're trying to, this is the most important thing is to film the film. But the reality is that once you've filmed the film, you need to push it out and it needs to have an audience. And the reality is that people will see your stills, they'll see your press pack, they'll see your all these ancillary parts. They'll see that before they watch your 20-minute, 10-minute, 30-minute film. So that's going to be the biggest representation of your film. So you want to make sure that you've put a lot of effort, energy, and thought into doing that, and make sure that everybody understands that this is an important thing, as well as getting the shot, as well as getting the sound, as well as doing all those bits and pieces.
Good still.
Um, I think what makes for a good still is something that like encapsulate. Well, to be honest with you, if you've got a good stills photographer, like I would recommend getting. If you look at your schedule for your shooting days, pick out the most interesting parts from your shooting schedule. So if you've got like a big scene where there's something happening, or like you've got stunts on that day, or if you've got something really interesting, I would book your stills photographer for those days because they'll take thousands of pictures, of which out of that you'll find some good stills.
I mean, a good still, and this may be it obviously involves people. A lot of people think like, oh, this is a beautifully constructed shot and it's a landscape shot, but like you want your actors in your stills, and that's like I think first and foremost you want the most actors that you can, like in terms of like the variety of actors. If you have a 10-person cast, you don't want all the stills of just your one famous person or something like that.
And also quality. Quality is so important, especially for, our work as publicists, because many times I get sent a film, well, the ones that I do like, and then I get sent the stills, and I'm like, God, I've got to try and sell this film with these bad stills. And bad, I mean like they're very dark often, because sometimes people don't have a stills photographer and they take screenshots of the film, and that's not always great quality. So you might have an amazing film and really dark stills that don't look the same quality as the film. You need a good still that tells the story that you have to see that one still and say, oh my God, I want to see that film. You have to pick out something that's interesting, but also something that doesn't give your story away.
And Catherine must be talking about my film because we had a still photographer. Well, she was really kind of an assistant AD, but she had a camera. We had a DSLR. She took some beautiful shots, but we didn't back any of that up, and the drive got destroyed.
Oh no!
And so I created a WhatsApp.
He was
group
also filming in
we were
India,
filming
right?
in Delhi, yeah.
Yeah.
So I created a WhatsApp with everybody who I knew was on set, even if only for like an hour, and I texted everyone, what do you have? And we wound up only with iPhone photos in terms of BTS. And then we had to reproduce the stills from the screenshots, screen grabs, basically, of the film. So, you can do wonders with presumably everybody here is, well, many of you have made your film already, and so if you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, I don't have that, you can get by, but it's better to plan.
I think it's
and to
important,
do it
like she was saying, it's like to edit those photos though, not just like take the grab and save it and go on, but make sure they're the highest quality possible from the source files, and that you're actually, if you need to do additional color correction to make that still pop a little bit more, that you do.
100%, because the grade of the film is not going to do justice. Now, you want to make sure that the image holds as a still, and interestingly, that's the best grade for the film may not produce the best still.
Kim, what else would you like to add? Because you've
I mean, I can only echo what's being said. It is so important, and sadly, because of course now we're sitting here at HollyShorts, and all of us are sitting here being told what we've been doing with the shorts for for campaigning and all that. And so often for shorts, there's no money, there's no nothing. So, and a lot of shorts are made by volunteering work and all that. But as a producer or a director or, who controls the film, it's just so important that not go down on those things. A lot of times don't have a still photographer on set, and we have to do screen grabs and all that. And it works, but it doesn't work as well as if you would have afford as a real still photographer. And in all my feature work, as I think I'm the last producer standing in Scandinavia who says I have to have a still photographer on set every day, because it's such a small amount compared to a huge budget, compared to that you just get that one shot that maybe is the film. Somebody asked what is a good still, and that is that one shot that actually can capture the whole essence of the film, and that is done by a great still photographer. We had a still photographer in Denmark who's been around for many, many years. He also done a lot of American movies, and he was also on Kevin Braham movie. The one was called Othello or whatever. And if somebody remember that poster with that one, it was one frame from his still photography. It wasn't taken from the film, anything, but it just had a little more character that was not found on the film. And it just shows that it is such a small amount of money, and just think about it, because it can save you for so many things in the future.
I just wanted to chime in as well very quickly. In terms of the kind of photography that you want to do for your films, you want to get you want to think about your poster as well. Because when you have your actor in their costume, depending on the kind of film that you're making, that's one of the few times that you'll be able to have them in situ on set in their costume. So you want to think about like taking shots for your posters, taking landscape photos, taking portrait photos, taking BTS. We've got crew in the photos as well, clean photos of your casts. It's just as the most, if you can get as much of that stuff as possible, it's only going to help you after your film is made.
Yeah, I mean, you just put it in as part of the production schedule. Basically, you put it in, and I know it's easy for us to sit and say it here, and then you go out there and you shoot a short film, and you maybe at 3, 4, 5 days, and time is running out. But you just try to do it, and that's all we can really benefit.
We'll get to your question. I just
Yeah.
want to give you a really good example first. So one of our films that won The Silent Child was starring a young deaf girl, and they did so much BTS with her, like for her audition, of when they were going to Oscars for the first time, like it was her first plane ride. So they filmed her on the plane, and all of that was so great for me for press, because as we got along, further than journey, we were doing a lot of TV interviews. A lot of TV stations, especially for the Oscar process, want something exclusive, new, that hasn't been used. And they had so much footage that really enabled us to get so many TV shows, so much coverage, because we were able to give, the first plane ride, we were able to give her audition to someone else. And that's also where it is really important to
Technically, I could have done this without a microphone, but I will keep it indoor voice. Actually, it's kind of tail spinning off of what you just said, which is I think part of the appeal of, behind the scenes is the story behind the story. So I'm curious, just for filmmakers trying to capture that story behind the story, do you feel like we should focus on the individuals, the people, or the project? Or is it kind of TBD? Like, do we figure it out on the way what the story behind the story is?
I mean, you focus on everything. I mean, no, it's easy to say, but I think just like was being said here before, you really make it with that you have both actors, basically free background, so you can cut it out, so you can make your poster with their, when you build up a poster with different layers and all that. But you also have to make the essence of the film from the different locations, from the different shots. So I think you have to focus on everything, sadly. But that's why I just have somebody there all the time to basically just shoot everything that is going in front of the camera when they shoot, because then you have all the things, and then just a lot of behind the scenes footage on the same time.
And I think every film is different in terms of like how the people came together, how the story came together, and you have to tap into what that is. I mean, Doug Rowland and I met because he sent me we always said we should be a commercial for LinkedIn, because who uses LinkedIn, but he sent me a LinkedIn message, and that's how we connected. And then that was maybe 6 months from when he was nominated for the Oscars, the director, for Feeling Through. And so that it was a huge part of the story, was also how he found the lead actor of Feeling Through the casting process, through Helen Keller Services. But then there's films that are maybe much less theme based, you know what I mean, and more plot driven, that you're not going to be able to grab onto the same thing. And it might be two people that grew up together that made that, and this is their first time, or this is their fifth movie together, and it's one that's finally popped. So I think you have to figure out, you know, every situation in its own right.
But I know this hour is going to go really quickly, so I just wanted to talk very, very briefly about the importance of festivals. And as you know, this is a quadruple Oscar qualifying festival, and it's now the second year of being a BAFTA qualifying festival. Which is great, right? But there is a slight difference with Oscars and BAFTAs, because for the BAFTAs, if you win an Oscar qualifying award at a festival, that enables you to enter to the Oscars. With the BAFTAs, which is sadly only for British films, you have to be in, not win, but be in two BAFTA qualifying festivals to be considered. So this would be one, and you'd have to be in another one. But I just want to really touch on being at a festival, and I'm sure all of you have talked to and talk to everyone while you're here. Go to everything like you're being here. I think it's really important, because you will meet great people who you might end up working with in the future. I mean, look at this fantastic panel, and three of which have films in the festival. So talk to everybody. But I'm sure you have been at events at this festival where you've asked people about their film, and then they've started to say, well, it has a girl in it, and the girl goes down the road, and you glaze over because you're bored. So I'm going to kind of put some of these on the spot and make them, okay, let's start with Kim. I want Kim to tell me about his film as if he's just met you, and sorry, Kim. And then I want to make one of you guys tell us about yours. I don't want to spend long on this, but I think it's tough. It's tough to do. So if you've never heard about Kim's film, I haven't warned them about this. So, but he's a seasoned professional.
I should just read out loud, because he was just asking me, what was your film about? I screened it last night, so I don't know if anybody was there for the 10 o'clock screening last night. Yes. Good. It's called Snipped. And basically, he was just asking, say, you better read it, because, and coming to what you're saying, I will pitch it, don't worry, I'll try to. But it is so important that you get that pitch right. And I have another story that I want to tell on what you're asking. I'm not trying to bend out of it. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to make up time.
Yeah.
But I think it goes something about a Jewish convert ends up with a Muslim doctor, and then things happens. Or yeah. So in a one line, a Jewish convert ends up with a Muslim doctor to get converted, and that's called Snipped. So I don't know if that makes it, but something like that. It is very important, and I think it goes along with that, to get you that one liner that really thinks. And I can have a war story going on here, because 2 years ago, as Catherine was saying, yes, I have been nominated a lot of times, and I have been nominated 5 years in a row. So when we were...
Let me just give a round of applause for that. I mean, 5 years in a row.
No, but it was not for that. But we worked on a film together. Was it last year or 2 years ago? I can't remember. Called Night of Fortune.
Oh, yes.
And that was actually very funny, because at that time, it was a film that was pitched in a Oscar competition back in Denmark, where there was this regional funding scheme that was making out a call for short films. They wanted to call it, short film for the Oscars. It was a little over the top. I said, please take that Oscar away. But it was a call for short films. And then they had to put in that synopsis, a 2-3 line or whatever. And out of that, I said, that film can go all the way. And we ended up being nominated. We should have won. I think we can all agree on that. Sadly, some filmmaker, I think his name was Wes Anderson or something, won. But
Who's that?
yeah, so I think a lot of people felt we should have won. Anyway, no, but that's just saying they pitched it in a 2-liner, and I was tricked right there. And I ended up supporting that film, paying for it, and produced it with them. And we ended up being nominated. I was not nominated myself per se, but the film was. So So it's just the importance of trying to get you that one thing right, and always to try to have a some little cliffhanger so people get intrigued by saying, "Oh, I need to read more about that, or I need to hear more about that."
I have the unique distinction on this panel in that I've won neither an Oscar nor a BAFTA, so I really don't fit in here. But I have a question.
2025 Oscar nominee.
I do have a question though. Thank you, Catherine. And I'm curious what you think about this. When I talk to people about Anuja at festivals, I would oftentimes preface the log line with a little factoid. It'd say like 160 million kids globally are engaged in child labor instead of going to school. That's roughly half the population of the United States. 1 out of 10 kids. This is the story of one of them, basically a girl who lives in Delhi, etc.
Right?
Is that, and so if you have like an issue-based film, then sometimes maybe leading with like why the film matters is important, and then you follow up very quickly with a log line. I don't know if that's the right strategy.
No,
It
I
worked
think
for me.
doesn't that make you want to watch it? And it's on Netflix, so you can watch it. Okay, Haydar, tell us about your film.
So it's based on a true story. It's about a young boy and his father who set up a makeshift hospital in a bunker at the front line of the Ukrainian invasion that happened in 2022. And as they're waiting for a evacuation vehicle to rescue them, there is a platoon of enemy soldiers that are closing in on their location and their hideout. And Ivan, our main character, has to make a series of decisions that I wouldn't really wish upon anybody. So it's a bit of a war thriller.
What's the name of it?
It's called Rock, Paper, Scissors.
All right, quickly, Andrew, tell us about one of your films.
I'm not gonna pick favorites among the films, but I have one called Olive and one called The Big Everything. They're playing tonight at 10 p.m., so you can go see them. And the filmmakers from Olive are here. And I had one that played on Friday called Strangers on a Beach. But I don't want to play favorites, nor do I want to take up too much time. But I will say that one of the things that all three of these films have in common is their exceptional casts. And really, like, Olive stars Leslie Ann Warren, who's an Oscar nominee and a Golden Globe winner. The Big Everything stars Bradley Whitford, and Strangers on the Beach stars Jelani Aladdin and Zane Phillips, and we were really blessed to have all those actors be a part of these films, and that goes a long way in terms of the attention that they've gotten.
It does, and it is amazing, but not everyone is blessed enough to be able to work with those type of actors. But let me tell you that Kim has won, and also Adam has been nominated without names in the films.
No,
So you don't
totally go either way,
But it also, it's great.
it is helpful in getting some press, though.
Oh, very. It makes my job easier. Right, I want quickly for someone to stand up and tell us about their film. Okay, come on then. Come on, Sandra. It's ready.
Key of Genius is the true story of the Queen of England, Camilla Parker Bowles' nephew, who is blind, autistic, and a musical genius. You'll learn about the music teacher who unlocked his talent.
Okay, you want to do it quickly? And then I want to move on to the why you're here, right? Talking about the Oscars and the BAFTAs.
I've just changed my synopsis based off your advice. 87% of Native Americans don't live on reservations, and this is a story of one.
BAFTA! Great. All right, let's go on to the gritty stuff. Oscar BAFTAs. Okay, what really does make an Oscar or a BAFTA film? And I think this market is changing. I would have said a few years ago, and I think Kim would agree, and probably Andrew would agree, that the films that would get nominated would always be topical. Well, many were based, recently on abortion or
It was like Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, different subjects.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And it is changing. We won with a film called An Irish Goodbye, which you may have heard of, which was, it did have an actor with Down syndrome starring in the film, and it was about grief, but it was also a comedy. And Kim's film, which won this year, was really a comedy. So I think there's a changing market in what I would have said a film is before. I think it's changing, and I think that they've made 4 live action short films. They've made now, and Kim can talk more about this. His own group, his own group in the Oscars. So there's now a live action short film branch, and that didn't happen before. And I think that's brought in lots of younger voters who perhaps have, and they've opened it up to anyone can vote for that branch, which before it was only people in the branch. I know it's a bit complicated, but I think that is changing which films are now they're going for, and I think that Kim could talk on that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. Now we've been on this route for the last 7-8 years, you and me, and I definitely think that is a big takeaway that you're saying there. I mean, if we look at it this year, and here sitting my fellow nominee, that was everybody thought that was winning, or not everybody, but a lot of the, you know how it goes with the whole, when you come down to that, we'll probably touch on it a little later, the whole thing when you get close to the Oscars, the prediction sites and all those things that you can get sick and dying of sitting every night and then refresh. And I'm telling everybody, don't do it.
And then
When I'm working with young filmmakers, no, but and this year there were 5 films nominated, and 4 of them was PSA film, as we're talking about. They were all public service announcement films. We just heard the pitch here. 160 million was labor, child labor.
You're a quick learner.
So where I'm Not a Robot was the only non-topical film, and a comedy on top of that.
it's changing.
And so the things has changed, because I remember we've been there so some years where we say, oh, we could just forget about it, because it was all PSA film that would win. It was all about the war. It was all about Syria. It was all those things. And even though we were always right there and had something in there, and I tend to have a lot of comedy, but for those who were there last night with Snip, for the question I was asked in the Q&A there about how things travel, I do feel like comedy can help a short film a long way. But we're coming back to that, I think, a question about what a short film is about. So I definitely agree that things are changing, but I don't think it's only the short films. I think it's also a life thing. I think we all, with COVID and post-COVID and all that, I think life is just becoming like, we want to get entertained, and we finally sit there for 20 minutes or 15 minutes, or if it's a 2-hour movie or whatever, you do want to get a little away from all the bad things out in the world. I feel like, that's coming to us all as human beings. You want to have that moment where you can be a little like, I just want to enjoy this. I just want to laugh or cry or whatever it is, right? And even though all these PSA film is so super important. I mean, I just saw yours last night, and it's an amazing film, and Ukrainian and the war and all that. And of course, that's a topic matter that is so important. And so was the Syria back then, when we had the Syria winner from, I can't remember, and all that. But I think it's changing, and I think the topic is going away.
It's the quality. What still stands is the quality. You have to have a film that, for me, and we get sent hundreds of films when it comes to the Oscars to consider working with. It has to be a film that after you finish watching it, you remember. Because sometimes you'll see a film and you'll like it, but then you think, oh, what's that film about? It has to stick in your mind. It has to have amazing cinematography. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, good acting, great story, and it has to have a beginning, middle, and an end. And unlike features, shorts have to grab you in the first minute. You don't have the luxury of having an hour. So it's really important. And, it's not easy. I'm glad I'm not a filmmaker, because I don't think I could make a great film as all of these guys have,
And now these guys have to talk a little, but I just have one quick war story again from working with Catherine. And it was, we made and it's also about, there are differences between Europe and America and the voters and all that. And the Academy, we're not going a lot into how the Academy has changed, but the Academy has changed over a quick note. The Academy has become much more international, much more diverse, much more young. So compared to in the older days, where the old white Academy here, they had a very specific vision on short film documentaries and what they felt engaged with. And I remember we had a film that Catherine loved so much, I never heard anything about it. She was like, okay, that's going to go all the way. She loved it. And that was just because she was ahead of the time. It was about transgender and all that. And we didn't even get shortlisted. And it was a great film.
Really good.
And just to make an example, because that year there was a nomination with a little gender equality or whatever is it in there, and that was how much the Academy at that point could go to. It was a young man who was cross dressing. That's how far they could go. We had a film about the whole, going from the whole gender changeover, but at that time the Academy was not ready for it, because I remember you. I mean, you called me and said, Kim,
Yeah,
I
so
I
good.
need to have this film. I love it so much. I need to work on it, and which was thank you.
You know what I'd love to do is to step into each of your journeys and your road to the BAFTA Oscars, and maybe just share a little bit. Maybe start Andrew, like you've been there more than once, and what are some tips, or maybe you can share about your journey to actually getting to
Yeah, I
Oscar
mean,
winning and
the story that we always tell was Skin, which was the one that won, and then Feeling Through was very different because Feeling Through was in the middle of COVID, so it was an incredibly different process in terms of events and campaigning and all that kind of stuff. But with Skin, we made this film that we were all very proud of. We knew it had some rough content in it, but we were really proud of it, and it didn't get in anywhere of the beginning of the kind of major festivals. It didn't get into Sundance, it didn't get into South by, it didn't get into Tribeca, it didn't get into Palm Springs, but HollyShorts it did get into, which HollyShorts has always been such an integral part of my
do you know
career.
last year 14 of their films got Oscar nominated from last year.
Yeah,
Holly Short.
this was the first year HollyShorts was an Oscar qualifying festival. And it ended up winning the festival that year, and the whole trajectory of the short changed. I mean, HollyShorts was the beginning of its launch, and then ended up winning Claremont Farad, and it went. I think it went out on to like 400 festivals after that. But like from HollyShorts to the Oscar win was a 6 month window. Feeling Through was very different. We had to have the intent to screen because like a lot of things were shut down, a lot of festivals weren't happening, but the Oscars still were happening, so we did like it was like an intent to screen four wall type of weird situation where it never actually filmed, it never actually played, but you had to have the letter from theaters that were closed. It was just kind of like this weird loophole that happened during that year. And then a lot of stuff was virtual for Feeling Through, in terms of the interviews and Q&As and all the press and stuff. And I remember, we were very fortunate to have an executive producer and Marley Matlin on that film, and that opened a lot of press opportunities for us too. And I mean, Catherine was our publicist, and I think we had like the Kelly Clarkson Show and NBC Nightly News and all sorts of amazing opportunities that you would never think of for a short. But one of the reasons we had that is because she had Marley that was kind of like able to be there front and center and speak on behalf of the film.
Yeah, I think I want to talk a little bit about strategy with ours, because I think what's really mystifying for a lot of people is that people think that awards are someone's going to see you from afar and give you a pat on the back for doing such a great job. And um, it doesn't really work like that. Like, you really kind of have to think about the journey of which you want to take to get to that point, to get to get the nominations, to get through to the awards, and think about what that value brings for you as a filmmaker, for your film and for your future career. Because presumably you don't want to make just one film and retire, unless you're, I don't know, James Cameron, you make the highest grossing film, then you can retire. But presumably you want to continue making films, you want to make feature films, you want to make the films that you want to, the stories that you want to tell. And going for these awards, there is there is a strategy to it. There's a way to look at, for example, with the BAFTAs and the Oscars, they release lists of all the qualifying film festivals, so that if you're working with short films, sometimes you have very limited resources to submit to film festivals, or you have limited resources for certain elements that will help bolster your approach for these awards. So it's really good to kind of download those lists and kind of look at those film festivals on places like Film Freeway, and try and find where your film can perform the strongest. Because depending on the type of story that you're telling, it might not perform well in a certain festival. And if you have to pay like $60, $80 or whatever to submit to that festival, and you don't get selected, it's a shame. So these are things that you can kind of think about and strategize, pull these lists together, work with your people as well. Like our cinematographer, for example, everybody on our team has got their own trajectory of where they're trying to achieve and what they're trying to do. And with our cinematographer, we tried to like spotlight her a little bit because she's a female cinematographer. She's coming from Taiwan. She's doing a lot of things in the UK and in Europe. So we really like highlight our people, and also it's really important to have conversations quite early on with a publicist like Catherine, because
I think he emailed me a year before,
yeah,
right before the BAFTAs, a year before.
and like slowly, like this is what I'm up to. This is like, what do you think of this? Da, 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 da. And that's really important because the thing is, when you're making films, and this really kind of talks a little bit about like your professional maturity of where you are with your filmmaking career. It's you start off making films for yourself, or you have something that you want to say and there's something that you're trying to do. But as you practice your craft a bit more and more, you realize that film deserves an audience. So it's about thinking, who is that audience? Where can you find that audience? And how do you get that conversation going with your audience? And that's why it's really important to work with people like Kat, because then you can start to generate those conversations through the press, through the media, so that when people are looking for you or looking for your film, that exists out there. So there's already people who are new, coming to your film for the first time as newcomers, are joining a conversation. They're joining something that's already happening, and it feels exciting. Like you see like F1 comes out in the cinema, people want to go see that because everybody's talking about it. Or Good Boy is now coming out, and there's loads of conversation online about it's a story, it's a horror film from a dog's point of view. That sounds really interesting because other people are talking about it, and that helps generate that whole buzz and that whole trajectory that the momentum that you're trying to do when it comes to things like the award seasons as well. Because fundamentally, your audience are people, and they're going to want to know. They're gonna want to know what your film is, or they're gonna want to know what film that is. And when it comes to the awards ceremonies, it's going to be an element of merit where your film has to be good. Your sound design needs to be good. Your visuals need to be good. It needs to be a coherent storytelling. That's almost an expectation to be making. You want to get to that point where you make good films, but there's all this other stuff that goes beyond the production of making the film that happens not just after, but you think about that from the start so that you can position it as best as you can.
I just also want to add one thing, and this is maybe my opinion that may not be shared, but I also think it's important not to put yourself out as a front runner too early. I think I get followed by so many different films and hit up by different filmmakers that and if anybody's like kind of like touting their own greatness too early on, it's an immediate turnoff to me. Inevitably, when it's a Wes Anderson or a Pedro Almodovar or somebody like that that's in the mix, they're going to get dinged as a front runner by the press because they're famous. You know what I mean? But like other than that, I would say like let the natural trajectory of your short like lead the way, and remain humble in how you're presenting it. Just like, I'm really proud of this. This is what we're doing, versus like, we're Oscar qualified and we're the front runner and we're this and that. Because that's, for me, that immediately makes you have to jump over 50 more hurdles to get in my good graces.
Great points. Can we drill into how to create that buzz, like succinctly with all the panelists? Because we can all have good stills, we can all have great log lines, but how do you get that buzz? Is it like a Deadline article, a Variety article? Is it a cool
It's more
like?
complicated than that, I think. But
Well, let's get into it. What's the answer?
Let's just have Adam talk about his journey, and then we'll talk about that. Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to think of God. If I had the answer to that question, life would be easy. But yeah, my journey, Anuja's journey is basically it rhymes with the journey you guys sketched. It basically goes like this in chronological order: rejection, 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 rejection. Ad nausea, and then Catherine, and HollyShorts. But I'm really, I mean that to some extent, that it was really hard to break through. We couldn't get the film noticed. HollyShorts gave us this platform, and then we connected with Catherine, and we were sailing. And I think one of the along the way, we made partnerships with organizations that were like-minded. We worked with a nonprofit in producing the film and kind of researching the subject matter. So we did a lot with them in terms of social media engagement, and then we partnered with a nonprofit production company called Shine Global that had historically only worked on documentaries. They'd been nominated and had won an Oscar before, but they took a chance with us as their first live action film. So we kind of partnered with these like-minded organizations, and that, I guess, is one way to create buzz. This is basically to say, find your audience, find people who are naturally interested in your subject matter, and then by the time we had won here, Catherine was already putting me in touch with kind of smaller media. And I remember I was really busy at the time because filmmaking is kind of not my day job. It is now, hopefully. But it wasn't then. So I was like, gosh, Catherine, I remember you asked me to write a profile for one of these, like kind of like an online blog. And like, oh, that's going to take me so long.
Building process.
And and then
build up. I mean, you start small and you get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, do I have time to do all these little interviews? And in retrospect, they were not only useful because they created more hits on Google. So when you search the film, it's not a big blank. You wind up finding things, even if they're small, little regional things with small audiences. But it also gave me time to basically think how to market the film, what's resonating with audiences. I learned how to talk about Anuja. It was like practice. It was like kind of like, before you take off the training wheels. So in retrospect, it was really valuable doing all that work that at the time I was like, and I kind of figured that out eventually. But yeah, so that's part of it. And then, that we had, and I have to tell you, another factor is just luck. So in terms of the distribution with Netflix, I mean, I'm not convinced we would have been able to sell the film to Netflix if it wasn't the fact that, Mindy Kaling happened to DM my wife because she's an artist, and she responded by saying, "Hey, check out this film we've made," and she did, and she loved it, and so that gave us kind of an avenue toward to kind of start a conversation with Netflix about putting the film up on their platform, and we made the film. I'm sincere about this. I really wasn't sure if anybody would see it outside of like my family effectively, because I'd made another short film that had a hard time gaining traction with. And now it's like 9 million views on Netflix. It's like in the top 4% of films on Netflix. So, it's crazy, but all luck,
Creating a buzz is different for every film. That's what's kind of a hard question to answer. Every single film will be treated differently, and it is a process. Like Adam was saying, when don't have a film with stars in it, and even though it's Oscar qualified, there's 200 usually Oscar qualified films, and at the same time you have hundreds and hundreds of features that are qualified for the Oscars and are going for the Oscars. So a lot of the bigger publications initially are not going to, and also remember the shorts generally can't be seen because they're in festivals. They're not on TV, and until it got to streaming, but most of them are not. So you're not going to get like something huge right away press wise. It's about building. It's about getting some of the smaller things, building to bigger, and then start to get noticed. A lot of films we have had executive producers come on, like we had Marley, and like Kim's come on films as an executive producer, and he's had people come on his films. That can help you get noticed earlier because you don't have big names, and that gives a nice opportunity to do a variety piece. But it's very strategic with each film, and it's really a building process, and then which you have to kind of go with, like Adam did, and then it gets bigger. Then the price gets bigger, and more people start to notice, and there's so much more to it than that. But that's kind of basic.
Yeah, I can just echo, and also to your question. I mean, it is really, you have to build it. I mean, just look at proof here. We were put on the stand to pitch our own film, right? I couldn't do it that well. I've probably got around with it, but these gentlemen have then been sitting and thinking about what to say, and then they were better at it. So what Adam was saying now, well, it is a lot of those interviews actually get yourself and the filmmakers and the team behind it to get stronger and stronger about focusing on, okay, where is it this resonate with somebody, also to resonate with the press or the public. What do they want to hear about, things like that. I mean, and I remember we had a film called Evalu that was nominated some years ago that my wife and producing partner produced, who she also produced Snipped, that was showing last night. And I remember when she was on, television at a Good Morning America somewhere that you were putting them up for. It was like they were beginning because I don't know if anybody's seen Evalu, but it was a subject matter, very dark subject matter about incest and in Greenland and things like that. And then we'll begin to talk about, the film on big broad TV program. They were like this, this anger. She just began to go, oh, it was so beautiful shot and things like that because you couldn't get into the dark matters. So you also learn about, okay, when you're in that kind of media, you tend to go on the lighter subject matters, so you get people interested. And in other medias, you can go dark or you can go into the the real things for that. And then a big overall thing, and I think it's being said here about bringing on executive producers and all that has become part of this campaign tool that that you're asking into. What is it that can make these differences? And I think one thing for me that is very, at least always very, very for me. Very important is that if you bring on people as an EP during the process to get press or to get help on the campaign and all that, it needs to be somebody just like Kathleen saying who's there for the thing, just like you just talked about your film,
With
right?
Marlene.
With Marlene. And I remember with Evalu, we had Connie Nielsen, who's a famous actress, who's also Danish, and we're Danish and all that. And she had an NGO in Africa who was dealing with the same subject matters, just down there with tribes and misuse of children in tribes and all that. And so that made sense that he got on there. And it was just not because it was her name, but she actually had a cause that our film was showing or talking about. So in that way, it made it interesting. And just like you said, different organizations and all that. That's some of those tools you really can use, and it's very important to figure this out.
Bring someone on just because it's a name, right? They have to.
Have a
It has to be somebody who connects with the film. And we got really lucky with Marley because
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, actually, Mindy Kaling also did some interviews. She was happy to. But all the years I think 10 years I've been doing the Oscars now. Marley was the person who really was so passionate that she was willing to push the film hard and really do a lot of interviews. And she's really done the most out of any executive
Yeah,
producers.
because you have to remember, this is the Academy voters. It's not like it's open for the public to vote on these films. So just like Andrew was saying before, if I'm Academy member, you are just joined this year. Hopefully you will be there soon. And we go through this process. I'm not going to bore you with all that, but there's two rounds. There's the round now, as the 200 films that Catherine was saying, is being divided into groups, and then the people from the Academy who opt in to say they want to sit and look at 40 to 50 films. If they begin to get those big names and somebody saying, oh, like all this is there, and the big studio, that was 2 years ago, we had this huge thing where out of 15 shortlisted films, there was 7 studio films. That was a whole game changer in the short film category. I remember I'm also part of I'm actually the vice chair of the new branch that was formed this year. And I remember at board meetings some years back, we were thinking about how do we get American films in there? Because it was like all foreign films that was nominated or shortlisted because, Americans, filmmakers, they rather want to do an independent feature for $15, $20, $30, $50,000 and hope to get into South by Southwest or Sundance because that's their calling card. But now the whole shorts has come back, and there was this year, I think it was 2 years ago, where there was the one with Almodovar and all those
Alfonso Cuarón.
yeah, and Alfonso Cuarón, and Disney made a deal with Alfonso Cuarón to make films every year. And I remember, I think I said to Catherine that December 21st, 18 or whatever is when that was the January, the nomination date. That was one of the most important dates in short filmmaking, because if that would have ended up being 5 studio films, then basically the short film category kind of would have been lost its soul. So thank God that didn't happen. 2 of them made it in there. One of them was Wes Anderson, and the other one was not really a studio film, but it was also picked up by Netflix, the one you worked on, the English one.
The After.
The After, yeah. And then 3 independent films. So thank God, people don't go with just because John Travolta is put 10 seconds into a film and is being put in a plane by Disney to fly around the world to hold dinners and screenings and all that. Academy members, they don't take it in. They just say that's too much. Yeah, at least in my mind.
That's good to hear.
Can I add one last thing that might be useful just for people? We kind of ripped the lid off of our credits during the process, and we kept adding people who knew things about the process and who were helpful in different ways and who were committed to the film. So Guneet Manga Kapoor, for example, a producer, big time producer out of Mumbai, joined the film, and we had other people who joined the film. And because we didn't really have a budget, as I'm sure most of us don't really for this. Nobody has. We would kind of just give credits away, and you want to be strategic about how you do it. But by the time we ended our Oscar run, we had such a lovely and quite large team of people who were out there advocating on behalf of the film.
But again, it was all people who was there for the film and the cause.
100%.
And that's what I was trying to say. That is so important. It's great to include people that mean something because they're there for the film and not just because it gives you a deadline article and then people can see straight through it that, okay, that's just
because you do worry that, like, if an attachment of a celebrity is just a deadline article and it means nothing more than that, could it potentially even backfire, right?
It absolutely can.
And so that's a concern.
I mean, it backfired. Like I just said, those 7 Oscar, the studio films that year, that backfired, I think, because I think people said, the soul of short films has to be a good short film.
Or the studio films just sucked.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I just said it the other way around. It has to be a good short film.
I want to touch on social media quickly, just because that is a part of the buzz that you can create yourselves for free. And anyone who has a film now, if you don't have an Instagram with your film's name, I would create one. And if you have a studio Instagram, you can just post the same things on both. But I think it's really important because when you're new, people won't know you and they will hear about the name of your film first. So I think it's really important to create an Instagram as soon as you've made the film. Start sharing it, put it on the website if you have one, put it on your own page to kind of direct people there, because that's what people will look up. I would also add Facebook, even though I know a lot of younger people don't use it as much. There's tons and tons and tons of Academy voters do. So I would have a Facebook for the film, I would have an Instagram for the film, and you can set it to post the same thing on both. But look at this as a free marketing tool. You're at HollyShorts now. Go and take a picture on the carpet right now. Post it. Meet other filmmakers, chat to them, post it. Post the screening of your film on it. It can be lots of different things, but start, share it, share. I mean, I haven't today, but usually I would just, share a piece of paper and get everyone to write down their Instagrams and share it. But, share these things with other people because, as things go on, it can be a bit of a full-time job when it comes to the Oscars, as you knew, Adam, and you guys know, like, really kind of pushing your Instagram can be a full-time job. And if you have a budget later, you can get someone to do it for you.
I just want to add quickly also on social media / campaigning. What the good thing about, I mean, we had Andrew just talking about it before during COVID, when suddenly all this was online and we were doing interviews online and all that. That changed a lot for everybody to the better for the short films, because suddenly campaign rules wise, the Academy is really trying to put the campaign rules down and harden them every year to make sure that everybody can kind of compete at the same level. And that really changed. It was a game changer there, because suddenly now, even though COVID is over, since then, now all these interviews are being made. If for now, of course, maybe not you, but for the voters of short films, they're going to look at these films. I mean, of these interviews, which is just done from their home bedroom. I mean, I remember attending some of these seminars online with some of the campaigning of big feature films, and you had Sorkin sitting in his bedroom, and that was totally fine. So everybody kind of say, oh, that's like coming from the old days where you had to have a theater and a panel and all these talks. Now you can just do it like that, and that costs the same for a short filmmaker as it does for a big studio film. So a lot of things has been better in the last 5 years for us short filmmakers in order to compete with the bigger budgeted films.
So if you three want to talk a bit about how you use social media in your campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, we post obviously anytime we're into a new festival. And I would say one piece of advice I would give is to make a solo post or story for that festival, because the festival is more likely to share it if it's not shared with like 5 other festivals that you're announcing at the same time. And then you can share again once the schedule's announced. You can share once you're there and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a huge part of the benefit of having multiple festivals and going to those festivals. And then yeah, posting behind the scenes stuff. Olive does a really great job of having clips and little trailer snippets and photos and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's a huge part of the process.
So I personally suck at social media, even on my own social media. I don't really post too much stuff. However, what we did do for Rock Paper Scissors is that we found someone younger in the team who loves social media. Um, and usually sometimes when you're working with a team, uh, some of the younger people are more junior. So it was really cool to be able to give that opportunity to work with some of the younger people in our team who can navigate social media a little bit better. Gives them the opportunity, gives us the opportunity. Um, so it was really cool to be able to find that if that's something that you're particularly not very good at, you can still do it for free if you look within your team and within your people, or if you've got kids maybe, or like nephews or cousins or sisters or whatever. If it's not something that you naturally kind of move towards, there's still a way to be able to kind of do the best that you can with what you can.
Same. Same here. Terrible at social media. In fact, our social media page wasn't particularly strong until I gave it up and someone else took it over.
Oh, but you know one that was really, 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 really good. Probably one of the best in all the years I've been doing it is Feeling Through.
Yeah,
It
Doug
was
was really good at
so
managing it.
good. He just made these great little posts, which would have, even from the beginning when you're getting smaller reviews, take those, take some great words from those reviews, put it on your social media, put it on your poster.
Mhm.
And he was so good. And I've used that as examples actually going through the years of saying this is really good. I mean, it is a full-time job.
No,
Campaigning is a full-time job.
the feelings. I mean, we took what I like learned from Skin, because Skin I was just thrown to the wolves. We all were thrown into through the wolves with Skin, and then Feeling Through, we were really able to hone and craft exactly what we wanted to do. So we took so much of what we learned, and like, yeah, I'm really proud of that campaign.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask us?
Hi, I think it's mostly towards you, Catherine. At what point should we start looking for a publicist, or should we always be kind of thinking of it? I'm here for screenwriting, so I don't have a short playing. I just did really well in the screenwriting competition. Um, do we look for something then? Like, how do we build that?
For me,
Sure.
I don't think there's any point in approaching us until you have the film that's made, because one, I don't want to read 10,000 scripts, but also, you might have a great script and it doesn't mean you're going to have a great film. So for us, it's like when the film is finished, even if I don't mind if you've got a film that you feel is solid, you can approach us and say, I'd love you to see it. We don't take on all the films. We only take on films we really, really love and are passionate about. So, you could always approach us and say that we've got this film. I have a lot of initial conversations early on and if I like a film and say, look, I really like it, but it is chicken and egg because there's only certain festivals I feel are worth spending money on for a short film to do press around. HollyShorts is one. Rain Dance is great for press. But not Palm Springs as much. I think that Tribeca, obviously the big ones like Sundance, but only certain festivals are worth spending money on for a press campaign for short films. And you really don't need to do more than one good festival in a year just to get the buzz rolling. But when it comes to once you've BAFTA qualified or Oscar qualified, you definitely need to be looking for a publicist then. And then, it's a case of sending the film, but then again, you don't need to start right away. Most of our campaigns for Oscars and BAFTAs, and just to say for BAFTAs, they have a strict no campaigning rule, which just means that you can't invite voters to screenings. It's really only press. They're really strict on that, so that's really good to make clear.
Yeah,
But
you can run publicity and press and stuff like that, like articles and
you
such.
just can't
Yeah.
do anything with voters. So once you have a film that's qualified, then I would look for publicists, even if it's early. I've already got some films that I'm going to work with for the next season, but we generally start in September, kind of a 3 month lead up. So once you've got your finished product, and I personally don't even want to watch a film that's not color corrected or sound like. Because I will judge it on that. And I personally I'm not a festival strategist, but I would not send a film to a festival that's not finished either, because I think they might not accept it. Whereas if you send your finished film and it's great, then I think that can make a difference.
This probably sounds lame and obvious, but if you have a film in this festival, you should be like creating some kind of GoFundMe page where you're raising money for your Oscar campaign because you're in an Oscar qualifying festival. So that's what we did. We had no idea that we were going to win here, but we were hedging, and so we're like, hey, look, so we tried to raise some money. We did. We raised like, a couple $1,000s, which helped get us starting.
And also, if you this is kind of, some people like this idea and some don't, but it's quite hard to win an Oscar qualifying award. There's 7,000 films submitted to this festival. There's 400 films playing. There's 4 awards, 2 for live action, 1 animation, 1 documentary. It's not easy to win. So you can also screen your film in a theater in LA for a week, and that also qualifies it for the Oscars. So that is an option if you don't qualify. And I think that, Kim has done that sometimes, right? And I think
I guess quickly talk to that. For those who don't know, there's 2 ways into the Oscars. One is Oscar qualifying, and one is what Andrew was just saying before. I think people didn't pick up on it, but he said forwalling, and that's the word they use for buying a theater for a week, and you have to show it once a day for 7 days in a row between 12 noon and 10 p.m. at night. So you cannot show it like in the middle of the 3 a.m. or something. And a lot of times in the academy, in the branches, that is being discussed, because a lot of bad films comes out of the forwalling segment, because that's basically where you can just buy yourself into the Oscars. Some people will say
bad films win festivals. I'm sure
exactly, and it always comes up, and I basically tell them, guys, I raise my hand in that meeting and I say, I've been nominated, 15 times now, 17, 18 shortlist, and we won 5 times. All of those films has been forwalled except for one, and that was I'm Not a Robot. And then the discussion kind of stops because it is different. Festival, jury, voting is different from voters out there. So it is 2 different things, and that's why those 2 things should still go along with each other. And secondly, I was just going to say a word to the thing about bringing on Catherine or another publicist. Wait until you have a film, because it is also about, Catherine chooses from her likes, and so does other publicists. So there's, unless you have an ongoing relationship, of course, Catherine and I now worked on the 8th year in a row now. I begin to talk to Catherine and say, oh, we might have this and this coming next year. So, but then one other thing I just want to say, and now I'm losing it because there's always this question coming up in some of these panels, and it's about what should you do with your film? Should you run a festival year or not? And I just say, if you have a film, try to run it as much as you can for at least a year in the festival circuit before you go to the Oscars. In the old days, I would take films straight in to the Oscars because the voting was different and people would see them with other eyes. But I think everything that we just touched on here today, if you have one takeaway from that, is to make it a good campaign year with festival circuit, because just small festivals that gets into don't have to win, but just get into, just like seeing said, a little press, a little wording, things like that you can build your show me on.
Start to hear about.
So when you're finally there for the Oscars or the BAFTAs, and people look you up online, just like it was said here by Adam, with the small into use and all that, suddenly there's just a lot of things to look at, and that's very important.
No,
Oh no, I was good. Go on.
I would just to stress on what he said. The programming of a festival and the voting block of the Academy is so wildly different. Think of like people have to have things that are certain time lengths to fit into themed categories, and they only have so many spots. Whereas then you're compared to anonymously being viewed by 10,000 plus people, assuming that like I mean not all of them are going to vote, but like it's a very different thing when they're objectively looking at it and for no other purpose than like what the merit of and the quality of the film is.
Yeah, and I was just going to chime in on the back of what you're saying as well. If you look at a short film, as soon as you finish it, you've got like a 2-year life cycle of what would be your like festivals or your award campaigns. And the way I would look at it, I mean, like with the Bafta, for example, you can't qualify through, what did you call it?
For walling.
Forewalling. You can only qualify through BAFTA qualifying film festivals, and I think there's something really interesting about doing a festival circuit, because it qualifies the quality of your film as well. Because when you get selected for a film festival, there's thousands of films that get submitted to a film festival. So if you're selected for a film festival, it means that you must be doing something right with your film. Your film's quite good, and if it wins prizes at those festivals, it's even better. So if you run a film festival circuit for a year, you can really put together a lot of different festivals that help make your film, help bolster the quality and the impact of your film, so that when you do go into the award circuit, it has some like shelf life, so to speak. People have seen it. You've got like new eyes on it, audiences that you may not have had if you didn't submit to different festivals, because festivals are international as well. Like I've come all the way from London to be here with you guys. We've screened our film in Germany and France, in other parts of the US. So it's part of the fun of making films, is that you have an audience. People get to see it.
Sorry to cut you, but we've literally, I think, got 1 minute or 2 minutes left. So what I would love you guys to do is, who has a film in the festival here? Okay, one by one, tell us the name of your film, and if it hasn't screened yet, when is it screening? Please just.
DNA test, and it backfires spectacularly in front of his family, and we screen on Tuesday at 2:30.
Amazing. Please all share. Okay. Just stand up.
Stand up and say
Time, so we want to make sure you get it in.
It's a story about a couple suffering with dementia, told in a different way. Just tonight, 10 p.m.
Anyone else? Just stand up. Be brave.
And we're part of the Social Impact Walk, Friday, 2:30. It's an opioid epidemic narrative film based on tree beds. Loved directing.
Woo! Love that. That's directing. You're in HollyShorts. That's pretty cool. Great.
Ridge is screening on Thursday night at the Indigenous Block. It's a story of a Native American hoop dancer. It's my story growing up as a Native American in Los Angeles and reconnecting to my traditions.
Cool. Anyone else? Yeah.
My name's Anthony Campanella. I'm producer of Sunday Sauce, which is premiering Body Horror Vlog, closing album festival on Saturday at 10 p.m. It's a story about a repressed Italian American father figure who is thrust into his worst nightmare when his secret grinder pen pal attends his family Sunday dinner.
Anyone else? Okay, I think we might. Well, one more. Go ahead.
Serious it's a small boy who tries to go home and find his parents and playing on Friday night in the UK.
And they have a great Instagram, by the way. I've been following you.
Sandra?
And I'll just yield the time instead to say how proud I am of these filmmakers. Hayden, when I was on the board of BAFTA, I rubber stamped your BAFTA scholarship for film school, and we're so proud of the journey.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. I had no idea.
And listen, Please thank our amazing panel. I mean, thank you guys for taking the time on a Sunday when you might be a little bit hungover to come and see us. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Let's go with a round of applause.
And one for Catherine.
Especially for the phenomenal Catherine Lynn Scott. So, ladies and gentlemen, please do not bombard the stage. We're going to have everybody step outside. We're going to break down for the next panel.